Welcome to Best Picture This, where it is always Oscar season. I'm Mike.
And I'm Brian. In this show, we reevaluate every Best Picture nominee from the 21st century and decide whether to keep it or kick it from its Oscar pedestal.
And if this episode doesn't go very well, we can just run away and start new lives, right? Get new names, move out to the country. What do you think?
The podcast's witness protection program?
Yeah. I mean, we would still do the podcast, of course, so you just have to do it
Different
under
names.
different names.
Yeah.
Exact same content.
That works.
In 2005, the nominees for Best Picture were Good Night and Good Luck, Brokeback Mountain, Capote, Munich, and Crash. But today, we're challenging everything you thought you knew about us to talk instead about another big release from the year. The movie, A History of Violence. The director, David Cronenberg. Here's the trailer.
One win and run coming right up, boys.
Bye.
Hey, Mr. Stahl.
Hey, Jared. Morning, Pat. You Tom? Thanks, Tom. Good as ever. Have a good evening. Just closing up, fellas.
Coffee.
I'm sorry, we're closed.
Oh, I know that. I do know that. Shut up!
We don't carry much cash here.
Don't move. Door!
They were gonna kill us. You saved our lives.
Hello, my hero.
Tom Stahl is a family man with long-standing ties to this community. Right now, this community is rallying behind him and calling him a hero.
Way to go, Tommy.
Great, more reporters.
They don't look like reporters.
You're the big hero.
Really don't like to talk about it, sir.
You sure took care of those two bad men, Joey.
My name is Tom. Who's Joey?
You tell me.
Sarah? Sarah! My daughter, where is she?
What's going on, Dad? They thought they knew me. Thought I was somebody else.
Nothing to worry about, Mrs. Stahl. I've been watching over her.
I don't know what you want, and I don't really care.
You should care about what I want, because what I want might change your life. But why don't you ask Tom and ask him how come he's so good at killing people?
Tell me the truth. What are you?
It's like we're officially out of that dramatic voiceover
Yeah.
phase. Man,
Narration is gone.
sad. So is this basically the same role, Viggo Mortensen, but in reverse as Return of the King, Aragorn? Because he was seemed like a spooky bad guy, and then he actually turned out to be a good guy.
Yeah.
This is the other way around.
Yeah, I guess if you dig deep enough, you can convince yourself anything is something else.
So the Academy Awards, the Oscars, suggested that William Hurt could be the best supporting actor. Well, they gave him a nominee. I loved William Hurt in this movie. He's so good. Only 10 minutes on screen.
I'll spoil a golden nugget. Get him out of there. Ed Harris should have been nominated instead.
Ed Harris is good too.
Is great.
William Hurt, I thought William Hurt was better.
It's a little wacky,
More
a little cartoony.
Yes, but believably so, in my opinion. Josh Olson was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay for this movie. It made the top 10 for AFI for the movies of the year. William Hurt is the first actor ever to receive an Oscar nomination for a comic book adaptation. It was also nominated for Golden Globe for Best Picture Drama, and Maria Bello was nominated for Best Performance by an Actress in a Drama. Peter Travers said it was the number 4 movie of the decade.
Nice. He went big on that.
He went very big on
swing.
that.
Okay.
Peter Travers, Rolling Stone. It was made for $32 million, which I'm surprised how much it cost. $32 million is a pretty big budget for a movie like this, I thought. And then the box office was $61 million. Coming up in the show, Farley Awards, Golden Takes, questions, imagine what might have been, talk trivia, and the big reveal. Would you have kept it or kicked it if it were nominated?
All theoretical. But first, our Farley Awards for the most awesome moment of the movie. And I think what I love...
You're going to cheat on this?
No. Well, kind of. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I always cheat a little bit. But what I love most about the movie are its contrasts. You know, you have beautiful pastoral landscapes mixed with gangsters in black suits, and you have wholesome family stuff, brutal violence, a lot of that. So to that end, I have to go with the most memorable scene, which your edit might have taken almost all of this out, but the staircase love scene.
I was just about to say the quasi-rape in comparison with the sweet cheerleader.
Keeps going back and forth. So
I know.
We got to reinforce again here, this is a spoiler show. So if you haven't seen History of Violence, go back and watch it. You really should, because we're about to spoil the entire thing in about 2 seconds. Okay, so this scene happens after Viggo's family has already found out about his past life, where he was essentially a hitman for the mob. And his wife, played by Maria Bello, is furious because he has been lying to her since the very first day, you know, he ever met her. And she's mad, so they kind of get into this fight that sort of turns into a love scene on the staircase. And it's this kind of dance where they sort of reveal their true urges in the moment and then pull them back. And they're trying together to kind of find that line separating aggression and sexuality and anger and passion. And I think it's really complicated performance-wise between the two actors. I think that they are both amazing here.
Absolutely.
And this, just like Closer, when I saw this, I was 18 years old, and I think that this scene kind of blew my mind open a little bit. Not that I wanted a relationship like this, but because you don't see relationships like this on screen very often. And so just to be able to see something different, I think kind of expands your worldview a little bit. And I think that scene is sort of an encapsulation of what Cronenberg is doing thematically throughout this entire movie. And yeah, it's my favorite moment.
It is. It's a really shocking moment. Also, both of those sex scenes, I got it all. I figured it all out with the edits. It's kind of another example of how much is really needed for the storytelling versus for other reasons. But we can save that for other shows because we can talk about that on every movie. My Farley Award is actually a cheat because it's going to go... I like the movie. I liked a lot of things about the movie, but I thought one of the most intriguing things is the title. This is like one of the best titles that we have done in like 100 movies, in my opinion.
It's a good one.
A History of Violence. As Roger Ebert pointed out, it has 3 possibilities. It has a suspect with a long history of violence. So this guy has a history of violence. It's also, number 2, the historical use of violence as a means of settling disputes, which is kind of the nature of the mob and the mafia. And how can you ever end a dispute? It just leads to more violence. And then number 3 is the innate violence of Darwinian evolution. It's like a humanity's history of violence. All 3 of those things work so well. And it's just... man, talk about a high-level, ambitious title. And Cronenberg is trying for all of that, and I think he succeeds really well in hitting all those things.
Yeah, and I saw some quote where he was talking about how he is a hardcore Darwinian, you know, to the end. So it kind of shows you a little bit of his intent, I think, behind some of the themes here. But there's a lot going on.
Golden Takes.
Into Golden Takes. I've seen this movie before, but on this watch, what really got me was I kept seeing parallels between this and The Fly.
Yeah.
David Cronenberg's other earlier film that we talked about in the summer.
1987, right? Was it?
I think so. So if you haven't
I'll look that up.
Heard that episode.
86.
So both movies are sort of tight 90-minute crowd pleasers with a ton more going on underneath the surface. And I love how he can mix this populist style with like this very sort of deep intellectual discourse. So thematically, I'm thinking specifically of this idea of duality, grappling like with the clash between what we know a person to be and then this new, very, very, very different side of this person, and then trying to reconcile the two, you know, what's real between that. So I think he's talking about identity, you know, what is our identity? What's it built on? Can Viggo Mortensen, as Maria Bello knows him, be real if this past version of himself was also real? Can the two exist, or, you know, how does that work? That kind of thing. And he does this sort of through role play. You know, in the first third of the movie, this idea of role play kind of plays a big part. Like his wife pretends to be a cheerleader, and then Viggo is very into that because it kind of allows her to shed the wife mother image that she's bound to, and it's a reminder that she's something else, right?
As you become an adult, you feel like you're role playing these adult roles. Like I feel like I'm still 18. A lot of people feel like that.
Oh yeah, it's all fake. It's all pretend.
Everything about my life is fake. No.
It pretty much is. Come on. but that theme, I think, is repeated throughout the whole movie. The first scene that we get with Viggo, his little daughter wakes up and has a bad dream, and he goes in to check on her. And then one by one, everybody in the house comes in, and they're so cheery, and they're all sitting on her bed and making her feel better. And it's corny, and it's
sentimental.
Over the top.
It's like tropes of happy family life.
Yes.
And as I'm watching it, I'm kind of like,
yes,
is this... he's because it's David Cronenberg and you know that he knows what he's doing. You're like, this has to be on purpose because it's too obvious that it's like he's walking over, he's going into his shop and he's picking up the trash.
Yeah,
he's picking up the litter.
Wholesome.
He's standing in front of the grand post office, the institution of American trustworthiness. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. It's too perfect. It puts up your sort of radar to say that something is wrong here. But I think, like you're saying, everybody in this family is playing a role in that scene. That they're playing the parts of the loving nuclear family, and it makes you wonder how much that's true for Bellows' character, Viggo's wife in this movie. Did she see his darkness on some level, and did that inform her attraction to him in the first place? Is she just in love with the facade, or is she also in love with that sort of hint of darkness that's in there? I don't think that you can look at this movie without asking yourself that question, and the two are so intertwined, and I think it comes to a head in that staircase scene that I was talking about for my best moment. That's what that scene's all about, right? That push and pull between being repulsed by something and attracted to it at the same time.
My golden take is very short, and that is I would like to see some graphic novels turned into cartoons more so than directly into movies.
You want this as a cartoon?
Well, I don't have a problem with the movie of it. It's just more like an idea. It's almost like what might have been from, random speculative from Brian. Because the graphic novel, like, why not give even more of a nod to the fact that it was a graphic novel? And let it be more representative of those. I haven't seen Sin City yet, so I'm looking forward to how that's going to work out. But I feel like just by the promo kind of images of it, it's a lot more trying to look like a comic book.
Yeah.
And we saw hints of it in Spider-Man. We see Road to Perdition. We didn't do an episode on it, but there's kind of like the tableau kind of feel of some of these some of the shots that I'm like, I don't know what it is. I'm still trying to understand this. Why it seems kind of clear that it was based on a graphic novel from some of the shots.
You think that it's clear here and with Road to Perdition?
Only a few. In Road to Perdition, I felt like it was, but I don't know if it was because I knew ahead of time.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out how that works. But anyway, without actually resolving any of that, I just think that it would be interesting to see it turned into a cartoon. And is that because we can't let it be a cartoon or an animated because then it would look like it's for kids, or what? Why don't they go from graphic to animation? I don't know.
I mean, some do. Enter the Spider-Verse was a really popular example of that a couple years ago.
That's very true.
But I don't see David Cronenberg directing an animated film, and I want him doing this, So if you can take a comic book movie and sort of be as loyal as you can to the seriousness with which it was written, and then make it into an honest drama and not like, everything's so over, like a Sin City. I mean, that sort of relishes in the high style of comic books, but that's what the comic is about. If History of Violence is more a story about humans, but it happens to have pictures, I want that human story. I don't care so much about the style, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing that style. All right, questions. I will go first.
Okay.
What connection do you see between this movie and The Fly?
Well, I was already talking about it before, a little bit of that duality and sort of convergence idea.
The duality. Where do you see the duality in The Fly?
Well, duality between who you see him, to be, and then who he becomes in the end, and then trying to figure out who the real him is on that timeline. Because at the whole time, it is really still him, right? But there is a certain time where he becomes so gross that he becomes like unlovable, and then you have to put him down. But he's still got sad eyes even when they're fully insectified, So I think that there's just something about like how much identity can be polluted, and how much we're willing to deal with that. And here we see that you can deal with a little bit of somebody's secrets and still be attracted to them. But is there a certain line where if Maria Bella's character would have found out more and more and more, she wouldn't have fed him dinner at the end? Because they do welcome him back in that final scene and say, have some meatloaf. We're going to try to do this.
The ending scene is stupendous.
I love it so much.
So good.
It's so good.
What's your question for me, Mike?
Nick Shager, Lessons of Darkness. He says, history of violence probes our intrinsic attraction to violence and with caustic incisiveness. I never seem to be able to read these without fumbling over. I don't know why. So did you see this movie as an indictment of the viewer's attraction to violence? Is Cronenberg sort of pointing the camera back at the audience in that way?
Well, there certainly is an opportunity to have it be more violent than it was. In fact,
it's pretty brutal, though.
In fact, I have a couple quotes actually about this, because Viggo Mortensen talked about this in an interview. In a 2014 interview, Mortensen said he read the original version of the script because it was written by Josh Olson, and Cronenberg basically rewrote it completely, and he didn't get a credit for it, but Viggo Mortensen said that he should have. It was 120 pages by Josh Olson. Cronenberg rewrote it and made it 72 pages. But before, it was 120 pages of just mayhem, kind of senseless, really, how Mortensen kind of saw the first, the original script. And it turned into, as Mortensen said, a perfect film noir or close to it. And Cronenberg said this. For me, he said, he described the film as a meditation on the human body and its relationship to violence. For me, he said, the first fact of human existence is the human body. I'm not an atheist, but for me to turn away from any aspect of the human body is a philosophical betrayal. There's not a lot of art and religion whose whole purpose is to turn away from the human. There is a lot of art and religion whose purpose is to turn away from the human body. I feel in my art that my mandate is to not do that. So whether it's beautiful things, the sexuality part, or the violent part, or the gooey part, it's just body fluids. So he's kind of, I think that his portrayal of violence to him is, in a weird, twisted way, a celebration of the human body. Just sometimes you happen to see the insides of it as opposed to, the idealized version of it. I think that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure that, again, for storytelling purposes, it's not always necessary to have as much as is in a lot of movies, but how much are we trying to disturb by the violence, and what does that do for the movie? I don't know. I think sometimes it goes too far, but this movie, again, I saw an edited version with some of it out. So
yeah, and there's some gore
gruesomeness
in this. Yeah. But I was saying earlier that you can sort of watch this movie academically.
Yeah.
Or you can just watch this movie as like, I'm going to eat some popcorn and enjoy it, because it's sort of just like there's intrigue and there's action.
There's a visceral level to it,
which gives you a kind of thrill. So what is that thrill saying about the way that we watch movies? In a way, we want those action scenes.
Well, it's sort of like when I was a kid watching I remember watching The Karate Kid for the first time and tensing up in every fight scene, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like reminding myself, calm down. You're not the one in there fighting. But there's something that makes you kind of feel alive when it gets your own adrenaline going by watching someone else in an intense physical experience like that. And there's something, there is something pleasurable about that.
Yeah. I think he is pointing the camera at us, but not in an accusatory way. I think that he's just interested in that sort of that divide between what we believe logically, like Maria Bello's character is repulsed by the fact that he's been lying to her forever, and what we feel logically, because arguably her attraction to him has almost never been stronger.
Yeah.
So like, what does that rift tell us about the way that we deal with people, see the world, see ourselves, that kind of stuff?
The marriage dynamics are just so well done. I mean, the shock of and the feeling of betrayal, Maria Bello does a great job of showing that. And you have to imagine yourself in that situation. Like, you think you know someone, and what happens when you realize that they have a totally different past than you thought? It's such a natural kind of fear, but it's what makes the movie kind of, it's one of the things that makes it rise above just like a popcorn movie. It's got a lot of art house film to it and a lot of popcorn value, I think.
Yeah, that populist academic mix. I won't belabor the point.
So tell me yes or no. I just have I have a couple of what might have beens. Harrison Ford turned down the role of Tom Stahl. What do you think?
Yeah, he could have done it, especially with his history in action movies. That would have brought something unique to it. But I love this for Viggo after Lord of the Rings. I think it's such a great choice.
Yeah, Viggo Mortensen is good. I think Harrison Ford there could have done great. David Cronenberg was considered to direct Return of the Jedi. What do you think? Star Wars family for David Cronenberg?
There would have had to be some weird sex in that movie, and then some like gooey gore, and then it becomes a whole different thing.
Well, Return of the Jedi could have used a little help. It's one of the weakest of all the Star Wars movies. Although we're about to see also one of the weakest. We'll get to that later. William Hurt.
How dare you? Revenge of the Sith. I know what you're doing.
William Hurt turned down the role to play Sam Neill in Jurassic Park. What do you think about William Hurt?
It's a bad choice. Bad career
He should have done it.
Yeah, of course.
Totally should have done it.
You get to work.
Sam Neill's good.
I always hear these things and I wonder how true they are. You get an offer to work with Spielberg and you go, nah.
Jurassic Park? I don't like dinosaurs that much.
Nah, I don't buy it.
Okay, a couple things of trivia. Again, William Hurt he got a nomination for being in one scene for 10 minutes. That's pretty short time. So the other thing is one of my favorite personal trivias, which is William Hurt also recorded an audiobook of The Polar Express, and we listened to that every year when I was a kid. So
really, does he use the same goofy voice?
No, it's like
Brohim.
No, it's very straightforward Polar Express recording. So keep her to kick it, Mike. Is this going to be in your top 5?
It 100% will be in my top 5. I love this movie, and watching it again this time, I don't want to say I was shocked, but I probably hadn't seen it close to 2005, and I loved it more now than when I saw it in the theater for the first time. I just think this movie is really, really, really good, and not enough people talk about it.
Yeah, it is interesting that it's kind of totally under the radar. It's probably because of that really bad movie poster. Movie cover of the DVD.
The DVD cover
the
stinks.
DVD cover's terrible.
There's a cool poster where sort of the gun is covering half of his face.
I saw that one on Wikipedia, but this is definitely a strong candidate for the top 5. I'm kind of I thought I had things figured out. This happens every year, that I think everything's good, and then I see something else that bumps it in. But it's definitely a candidate. The ending helps to push it stronger in toward the top 5. I think it could have been a little bit of everything can be cheesier at the end. This one has no cheesiness at the end, which I really appreciate.
I'll be very disappointed if this does not make your 5, and I'll let you know about it.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that conversation. In the next episode, we will talk about Match Point, Woody Allen's drama about class, passion, luck.
We want to hear from you. What do you think of David Cronenberg and his more mainstream, I guess, if you want to call it, movies like this one and The Fly? You can find us at bestpicturethis.com, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you listen. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at Best Picture This. And for 15 years of Golden Takes, head over to Letterboxd where you'll find me, Mike Cavalieri.
To support the show and help pick a bonus episode, visit patreon.com/bestpicturethis.
Thanks to WNZF and the illustrious Mark Gilliland for producing. Also, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe.
Thanks for letting me do this podcast with you, Mike. I don't know if many people realize this, but Harrison Ford was offered the role and turned it down, so I think it turned out pretty good.
Pretty good.